Hey everybody, it's Curse, and today I'm going to bless you with a Sabertooth Critical Strike build proof of concept. As you can see, this build dishes out some serious DPS. Sub 20 second Julra is nothing to laugh at. The reason I'm not doing a full build guide, however, is because I have not properly addressed the squishiness of the build. So I'm sharing this build with you all, and I'm hoping to highlight the potential that there is with Sabertooth. And maybe somebody takes this build, fixes the survivability issues, and takes it to another level. The other reason I'm not going to go into a full build guide with this one is because it is somewhat similar to just running crit squirrels, and crit squirrels are just insane. So I'm not sure that we can arrive at a crit Sabertooth build that isn't just a worse version of squirrels. But who knows, I could be wrong. So I'm still going to share it, and let's take a look. Irashaimase! Alright, so I'm going to go through the skills, but we're going to do it much faster than usual. Basically here in the Sabertooth skill tree, you want to go for Snow Stalker. This is 54% more damage on your crits. Make sure to get heavy paws as well for the multipliers between these two nodes. Keen Senses is useful if you need to max out your crit chance. With really good chest piece that gives you plus 15% minion flat crit, you might not need 120% crit here. So you might be able to get away from investing 4 points and moving them maybe to crit multi or to some other multiplier, maybe even attack speed, etc. Savage Catalyst is really good because most of our damage comes from Flurry swipes. Flurry swipes is basically a triple attack that the Sabertooth performs, which doesn't take any attack animation. It just happens around the Sabertooth. So the Sabertooth keeps attacking with a brand new melee attack even while Flurry swipes is happening. So basically most of our DPS is Flurry swipes. So you want to maximize that. And we also want to convert the Sabertooth to an Ice Tiger. This is phenomenal because we're running double Apogees. Going to the cornered beast node is interesting as well if you choose to run low life. We actually had that running at the beginning of this build attempt. However, when we switched to full crit at all times, DPS went up at the expense of our squishiness. So I think there is room for min-maxing here. You could still run low life without taking this node and still get great DPS while simultaneously being pretty tanky as well. I just don't happen to have the right chest piece for that setup. And the way that we're triggering most of the Flurry swipes for our Sabertooth is through this node on the swipe skill tree right here, Primal Resonance. Every time we hit, and it's on a 2-second cooldown, reduced by our CDR from boots and belt, the Sabertooth performs its ability, the Flurry swipes. On top of that, swipe also gives that Sabertooth 168% crit multi. It's absolutely ridiculous, this Twin Fangs node right here. So make sure to max it out together with the getting the 7 stacks of Aspect of the Panther. If you happen to have extra points in swipe, definitely put them in culling. Culling is so good. We could have cut that Julra fight by like 5 seconds if we had 2 points in here. The purpose of Warcry in this build is to give us 100% uptime on 200% crit chance between these two nodes, as well as 100% chill chance, because if you recall, we need chill to get this extra more damage multiplier. It also gives us 250% increased cold damage for our Sabertooth. Gives us cleanse as well. And you need to pick Shallow Breath over here to ensure that we have 100% uptime. You can see I have a 3.1 second cooldown because of my CDR. For Frenzy Totem, the biggest highlights here are Grounded, giving 25 global melee damage. This, I do believe, applies to the Sabertooth as well. Same as Bestial Frenzy. So that's 45 flat damage. And more importantly, it gives us Maim, which essentially doubles the DPS of Flurry swipes. So Frenzy Totem is a must-have, especially Maim over here. And then make sure you get a little bit of health and duration for your totem. And that's about it. There are a few important notes on Fury Leap here. It gives us 15 global melee damage, not just for our hero, but also for your minions. The secondary purpose for Fury Leap is to summon vines between these two nodes right here. You can summon quite a few vines, and if you cast Fury Leap enough times, eventually you hit your limit for the vines that you can have, and the new ones start replacing the old ones. And the old ones getting replaced counts as dying for your Apogees. When a minion dies, you get a stack of Frozen Vengeance. And those Frozen Vengeances give us like at least 1.5x the damage. So it's a significant damage boost. I strongly recommend running these two. It's a really cool trick that somebody taught me yesterday on stream. And that's also a really good segue to the next part of the video, where we explain the itemization that we have here. Clearly we're running double Apogee. Unfortunately, we do not have tier 7 minion melee damage. I tried to slam it in a few of them, but failed. You can see here, tier 5 melee attack speed. But if you can get tier 7 minion melee damage, this build is going to be even stronger when it comes to damage dealing. The only way I would consider changing one of these Apogees is if you can somehow manage to run low life with a cleaver solution. But in order to do that, I would recommend running a tier 7 minion melee crit chance prefix into your Exsanguinous, because otherwise you cannot max the crit chance. You can see that I'm also getting aspect of the Lynx effect for even higher crit chance from Lynx, as well as higher crit multi. And we have a sealed crit multi minion affix as well. The suffixes are really bad, unfortunately, but you know, you can't get everything. For helmet, you cannot get the added minion melee crit chance in the helmet, so we opted for minion crit multi and a bit of a defensive helmet right here. Getting tier 5 aspect of the Lynx effect in the helmet is not bad either, because keep in mind that also gives you minion crit multi. Ideally, for the implicit on the chest piece, I would opt for the cooldown reduction one. And then you also want to be running CDR on the belt and boots. Going from tier 5 to tier 7 on CDR is not a significant increase in the numbers. It goes from 20 to 32. So you could consider just staying at a tier 5 for the belt if all of the other affixes are great. When it comes to rings, I strongly recommend running the cooldown reduction rings, because the lower the cooldown for swipe, the more DPS we're dealing. Our gloves are fairly defensive, and our relic, I do recommend the minion melee cold damage implicit relic. I ended up running increased minion health just to be able to run this implicit, but also it's not bad to have at least one affix where it gives you minion health, because none of the other items give us minion health. Unfortunately, that means we have to settle for a tier 5 summon Sabertooth, but that's not too bad. I think with 29 points, we've pretty much hit all of the nodes that we want to hit inside the Sabertooth skill tree, so this is just fine. The suffixes of this relic are also perfect. Health and frailty, really solid right there. And then I'm running an Omnis for Amulet, just to make things easier on the res, and +1 all skills never hurts. In terms of idols, the only ones that are worthwhile mentioning here are the aspect of the Lynx effect that I'm running here with a little bit of res. Lynx effect is, remember, crit chance and crit multi for our minion. And then we're running a 2x2 that gives us aspect of the shark duration, as well as minion melee attack speed. The 3x1 is just a simple health and a little bit of damage for the minion. Everything else is defensive for idols. In terms of blessings, my blessings have not been optimized for this build. This crit multi should probably be health. The mana here is fine. And then all res is solid here. The Age of Winter, we want to be switching this to cold res shred. And Spirits of Fire armor is great. And let's also quickly go over the passives as well. You can see I'm not running Berserker anymore, but everything else is pretty much the same. On the Beastmaster side, it is quite different. We want to get Serrated Claws, tier 6. We really must get 6 points in Serrated Claws. It is too much of a bonus, 120% crit multi, to not get it. So we had to make some sacrifices here and there on the other passive skill trees, but we managed to get those 6 points. 3 points in Craft the Lynx is sufficient, because the indirect activation of our companion ability through swipe actually activates that Craft the Lynx as well. We also opted to put more points into Aspect of the Shark because we don't have a source of Armor Shred. And so this is basically our source for Armor Shred. I went for as bare bones as possible setup here. Rending Maw, 5 points, and then 7 points in Ocean Maw. We tried Feeding Frenzy as well, but we just don't have enough melee attacks per second to make this worthwhile. You're better off just keeping it off and staying at 1 stack of Aspect of the Shark. And obviously you want to be running the single 1 companion limit, just it gives you crazy amounts of damage, so make sure to put 2 points there. And of course we want to max out the minion melee attack speed, and everything else is fairly straightforward. We did end up having 5 points left over for a little bit of extra tankiness. And the playstyle is pretty straightforward. You just spam all your buttons. You swipe and then you cast something else, swipe and then leap, swipe and then cast something else, swipe, and then yeah, just interchange your buttons, making sure that swipe is never off cooldown. And that's about it. Alright, let's give this build a final tier as well. We have it up at the top, Beastmaster Sabertooth Crit. We can reliably get tier 4 Julra 15 to 20 seconds, and I do believe with better weapons you can get it to be sub 15 as well. So we got S tier here. In terms of monoliths, this is where the build struggles a little bit. Basically, you have insane damage, but you're quite squishy, so you gotta kill the enemies before they kill you. Corruption 3 to 500 is doable, but survivability is really poor. I put it at 8-. Mobility is pretty good actually because of all the CDR and our leap working off of a 3-second cooldown. So overall tier I have at A. However, I do believe you can fit this build with a low life setup, which would give you a ton more survivability, probably somewhere in the S- category. And that would push you up to 5 to 800 corruption, somewhere around there. If you can get, basically you just need tier 7 melee critical strike flat into your Exsanguinous. If you can get that, you can probably fit the boots and the gloves into this build, and everything else is going to work out pretty well as well. Multiplier utility is surprisingly good for this build. Frenzy Totem, as usual, gives allies Frenzy, as well as 25 melee flat. But on top of that, Warcry, the way we've spec'd it, gives allies 100% critical strike chance and 250% cold damage. That is solid. I put the cost to itemize at A+. It's not too bad. A lot of our crit chance for our Sabertooth comes from skills and passives. So the one item that you really need is the chest piece with tier 6 or tier 7 minion melee critical strike chance. And final tier surprised me. When I was looking at this build and all of the various categories that we have here, it was outperforming a lot of other classes, and I put it at A+ for final tier, but I would put 2 caveats here. I think the reason why I was so hard on this build previously when I first started making this video is because I'm coming off of playing Earthquake, and Earthquake kind of just demolishes everything. So I think I got a little bit jaded, a little bit spoiled perhaps, when it comes to running slightly weaker builds. But at the end of the day, this build outperforms a lot of what, let's say, Marksman has to offer, especially when it comes to DPS. There is no Marksman build that can out DPS this build, hands down. But yeah, if you can fit a low life setup with a ton of tankiness into this build, I think you can get it to S tier. And who doesn't like running around with a cute little Sabertooth kitty cat? It's fantastic. The other note I want to make is I'm feeling more and more inclined to essentially take down every single tier that I have here by 2 grades. I feel like we have had definitely a power creep in the game, and that is making it so that every build that I'm making is ranked higher than I would ideally like. I think we need to introduce a little bit more stratification into our tiering here. And right now we have just far too many A and S tier builds. So I likely will be doing that soon, but yeah, this is it for this build. It's an A+ build. It's surprisingly strong. And so now check out a Corruption 491 monolith clear with this build. It melts through everything. You just have to kill all the enemies before they kill you. The monos themselves are not too bad as long as you avoid getting too many enemy damage modifiers. Boss fights can be a little bit rougher just because they don't die in one shot. But honestly, the build has a lot of room to grow. I put it together in like a couple of hours, so it is far from optimized when it comes to survivability especially. Anyway, I enjoyed this build. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. We set out to make a build proof of concept. We ended up creating something that is very akin to our usual build guides. But what are you gonna do? And I have just one more Beastmaster build I'm gonna try before I move on to a different class. So if you enjoyed this one or some of the other Beastmaster builds, like and subscribe the video. Come join me on Twitch or on YouTube. I'm streaming on both nowadays. And other than that, take it easy and go chiso some other stuff.